Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we decode the financial secrets of big companies by diving into their official filings. You know, sometimes these reports are so full of legalese and tiny numbers, it feels like trying to find a needle in a haystack. But today we're going to try and find a shiny, important needle that tells a specific story. Stick around and we might just uncover something interesting. Today we're looking at a filing from Apollo Debt Solutions. BDC, this isn't your typical quarterly or annual report. It is what is called a post-effective amendment to their registration statement, and it is specifically focused on adding exhibits. Think of it like filing an important appendix to an already filed document. The main point here is to make sure all the required paperwork is in order for any potential future offerings of securities. So this amendment becomes effective right away. It is mostly about adding exhibits, which are basically the supporting documents for their registration statement. It doesn't change the core of what they originally registered. Now, the meat of any of these filings for us is usually the financial statements and the exhibits, which are essentially the contracts and foundational documents that govern how a company operates. Under financial statements, they list out the standard reports like the statements of assets and liabilities, operations, changes in net assets, and cash flows along with a schedule of investments. These are all incorporated by reference into this filing, meaning they are part of the larger registration statement that was filed previously. The index gives us a quick overview of what financial information is included in the full registration statement. We see things like the report of independent registered public accounting firm, which is basically an audit report from external accountants saying whether the financials are presented fairly. Then we have consolidated statements of assets and liabilities, operations, changes in net assets, and cash flows. For a company like this, these are crucial for understanding their financial health. The consolidated schedule of investments is also very important, as it details what the company is actually investing in. Moving on to the exhibits, this is where we see the actual legal documents that lay out the framework for the company. First up, we have the Fifth Amended and Restated Declaration of Trust. This document basically sets the fundamental rules for the company, like its structure and its purposes. It is incorporated by reference from a previous filing, the fund's annual report on Form 10-K. Then we have the Third Amended and Restated Bylaws. These are the internal rules for how the company is run, covering things like how meetings are conducted and how directors are elected. Again, this is referenced from a prior 10-K filing. The form of subscription agreement is important because it is the document investors sign when they buy shares. It outlines the terms and conditions of that purchase. We also see an amended and restated distribution reinvestment plan. This is for shareholders who want to reinvest their dividends back into buying more shares of the company, which is a common feature for investment funds. A really key document here is the Third Amended and Restated Advisory Agreement between the fund and the advisor. This agreement defines the relationship between Apollo Debt Solutions, BDC, and the company that manages its investments, outlining the services provided and the fees involved. This is critical because it sets the stage for how the fund's assets are managed and how the management company is compensated. We also see an intermediary manager agreement. This likely relates to how they work with financial intermediaries to distribute their shares or manage certain aspects of their operations. The custodian agreement with State Street Bank and Trust Company is also listed. A custodian bank holds the fund's assets, providing safekeeping and administrative services. This is a foundational relationship for any investment fund. There is also an amended and restated administration agreement. This outlines how administrative services, often related to accounting and compliance, are handled for the fund. The escrow agreement indicates the use of an escrow agent for certain transactions, which is common in financial dealings to ensure that funds are held securely until specific conditions are met. An agency agreement with DST Systems, Inc., which is a financial services provider, suggests they handle aspects like transfer agency services, which involve managing shareholder records. The multi-class plan signifies that the fund offers different classes of shares, each potentially having different fees, expenses, and dividend distributions. This is quite common for investment vehicles. The expense support and conditional reimbursement agreement is quite interesting. It typically means the advisor might be covering some of the fund's expenses with the possibility of being reimbursed later under certain conditions. This can impact the net returns for investors. We see a facility agreement with Goldman Sachs Bank USA as a financing provider. This indicates the company is using debt financing, which is a significant aspect of its capital structure. The filings list several agreements related to subsidiaries like Mallard Funding LLC and Cardinal Funding LLC, along with various credit agreements, loan and servicing agreements, and facility agreements. These are all financial instruments. indicating the company is actively using debt and structured financing to operate and expand its investment activities. These often involve complex arrangements with banks like Morgan Stanley, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase. Analyzing these would require a deep dive into structured finance, but for our purposes, it tells us the company relies heavily on borrowed money for its operations and investments. The sheer number of these credit and loan agreements across multiple subsidiaries and with various major financial institutions suggests a complex debt structure playing a significant role in how Apollo Debt Solutions BDC funds its business and its investments. Further down the line, we see a lot of supplemental indentures and forms of notes for various interest rates and maturity dates, like the 5.20% notes due 2028. This points to the company issuing debt securities, essentially borrowing money from investors and agreeing to pay it back with interest. These are often the kind of instruments that BDCs or business development companies utilize. We also see a series of agreements related to CLO or collateralized loan obligation. Structures. These are complex financial products where portfolios of loans are pooled and then sold to investors in different tranches. Agreements like the Purchase and Placement Agency Agreement, indentures, collateral management agreements, and master loan sale agreements all point to the company being heavily involved in issuing and managing these CLOs. This is a sophisticated area of finance, and it means they are likely packaging and repackaging debt instruments for sale. Now, let's look at the expenses associated with issuing these securities. We see significant numbers here like SEC registration fees, FINRA filing fees, and substantial legal and printing costs. The total estimated expenses of issuance and distribution come out to over $7 million. This is a considerable amount, highlighting the costs involved in bringing securities to market and maintaining regulatory compliance. This total for other expenses of issuance and distribution is a big number, showing the significant costs involved in operating as a registered entity and managing offerings. Here we get a snapshot of the shareholder base. As of the 28th of February 2025, they had a total of 18,016 record holders across their Class S, Class D, and Class I shares. The vast majority are in Class S with over 10,000 holders, while Class D has a much smaller number. This tells us about the diversity of their investor base. The indemnification section is standard legal boilerplate. It basically states that directors, officers, and controlling persons are indemnified against certain liabilities, but with important carve-outs for willful misfeasance or gross negligence. They also carry liability insurance for their directors and officers. This section refers to information about the advisor, Apollo Credit Management LLC, and its key personnel, which is detailed in Part A of the registration statement and their Form Ad-V. This is where you typically find background on who is actually managing the fund's day-to-day operations and investments. Finally, they list where all the accounts, books, and documents are maintained. This includes the registrar's office, the transfer agent, the custodian, the advisor, and the administrator. This is important for audit and regulatory oversight purposes. The undertaking section lays out the company's promises to the SEC they commit to filing post, effective amendments to update the prospectus with new information, reflect fundamental changes, and include any new information about their distribution plans. They also agree that each amendment will be treated as a new registration statement for determining liability, and they will remove unsold securities from registration. And here we have the signatures confirming that the company is indeed filing this amendment. We see the authorized signatories, including Earl Hunt as Chairperson, Chief Executive Officer, and Trustee, and Eric Rosenberg as Chief Financial Officer. The signatures of the trustees are also present. Authorized by powers of attorney. Now let's wrap this all up with my take on Apollo Debt Solutions, BDC, based on this filing. What stands out immediately is the sheer complexity of their financial operations, as evidenced by the extensive list of credit agreements, loan facilities, and especially the close structures. This isn't a company that simply buys and holds stocks. They are deeply involved in the debt markets, utilizing leverage and intricate financial engineering, which can amplify both returns and risks. The prominent role of subsidiaries and the numerous agreements with major banks like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, and Citibank illustrate a sophisticated and potentially high-leverage business model. While this can lead to significant gains when market conditions are favorable, it also means they are exposed to considerable risk if those markets turn sour or if their underlying loan portfolios experience significant defaults. The expense figures, particularly for legal and printing, also highlight the ongoing costs of maintaining such a complex, regulated financial operation. The fact that they are filing a post-effective amendment to add exhibits rather than to fundamentally change their offerings suggests they are diligently managing their regulatory obligations and ensuring all supporting documentation is in place. This focus on compliance is a positive sign, but the inherent complexity of their investment strategies represents a notable risk for investors. Understanding the details of these close structures and credit facilities is crucial, as they are not straightforward investments. In conclusion, Apollo Debt Solutions BDC, based on this filing, appears to be a sophisticated player in the debt markets, operating with significant leverage and utilizing complex financial instruments like CLOs. Their strategy allows for potential high returns, but it comes with amplified risks, particularly related to market downturns and credit quality of their underlying assets. Investors should approach with caution and a thorough understanding of these instruments. Alright? That is our breakdown of this filing from Apollo Debt Solutions BDC. What do you think about their complex debt focus strategy? Does it excite you or worry you? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this analysis helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into corporate filings. And if you want to join a community of like-minded financial explorers, check out our Discord server linked in the description. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next decode.